to fall. I won't shed a tear for them to see. I won't have your name to call, 'cause I will be the last to fall.
You have landed on World History 102 from Enoch's dream vision, given him before he was even married, placing a timestamp of almost 1,000 years before the flood. Yes, Enoch was the first among men to write, period. He is also the oldest man to ever live by far, and he's still alive. Time-wise, as the opening song says, he will be the last to fall in this spiritual battle, in a sense. There is no writing from men that date prior to him. Watch the first parts of this series if you have not. Yet Enoch saw what we now call history in our post-view as incredibly accurate prophecy. No wonder Noah read and taught this book, as did Abraham, as did the prophets and apostles, and Messiah himself. The real question is, why would we ever listen to any fool telling us this accurate prophecy and all the massive evidence right here under our nose, as you have seen in this publishing and series, is anything but inspired scripture? That includes any scholar, theologian, historian, etc., who have never done their homework. For maybe the Egyptian wolves hate it, as you'll see in this video. Well, it is time they grow up and mature and learn how to research rather than repeating tired old narratives that have never rung true and they do nothing to prove in the slightest. This testing of 1st Enoch proves it as inspired scripture, and one of the greatest such measures is prophecy come true, as you're seeing in these animations. The flood is now ended, and we progress through time with Enoch's dream vision in animation. Again, we are not animators, but we'll do our best, the best we can. Here we go. Another huge chunk of history unfolds. Beginning in chapter 89:10 of 1st Enoch. If you do not have a copy of our publishing, you may download free in eBook at firstenoch.org. Let's read. And they began to bring forth beasts of the field and birds, so that there arose different genera: lions, tigers, wolves, dogs, hyenas, wild boars, foxes, squirrels, swine, falcons, vultures, kites, eagles, and ravens. And among them was born a white bull, holy Abraham again. We are back to the old paradigm in that sense. He does not become a man in this narrative as Noah, referring to skin tone. Just an animal in Enoch's dream vision. What is Abraham surrounded by? Well, we'll let the narrative play out over time, even in the next videos, and we'll return here, and Enoch identifies these animals. This will be insightful for many. Verse 11, and they began to bite one another. But that white bull, holy Abraham, which was born amongst them, begot a wild ass. Now that's Ishmael, exactly as defined in Genesis 16:12. That's what it truly indicates. The NIV and other versions pick up on this in their translations of that verse. How do we know Ishmael was a wild ass or donkey? 1st Enoch. That is its origin. And a white bull, holy Isaac, with it. And the wild asses, Ishmaelites, largely Muslims today in origin, understand that, multiplied. But that bull, Isaac, which was born from him, begot a black wild boar. That's Esau. Black as in evil again, like Cain. This is not skin tone. And notice this reference to Ishmael. He was not black. Interesting. So not necessarily evil. Doesn't mean he was good. It just means he wasn't like Cain. But Esau was. This is not skin tone. Remember, we're back to the former paradigm. Esau is known as the wild boar, even called so twice in the book of Jubilees by Jacob. Again, origin, first Enoch. Jacob was quoting first Enoch. And a white sheep, notice, holy Jacob. Transition to sheep instead of bulls. No, Hebrews are not white. They're medium brown skin. Why? Jacob becomes Israel. Know this. The reference to the tribes of Israel and the ecclesia as sheep originates in first Enoch. How about that? Wow. And the former begot many boars, Edomites from Esau, whose name became Edom or red. For what? We covered this in Answers in Jubilees. For the red lentil soup, in which he sold his birthright. No, he did not have red hair as far as his head. Nonsense. The evil enemies of Israel throughout the Bible, to the end, in fact. Enoch knew this would happen. But that sheep, Jacob, begot 12 sheep, the 12 tribes of Israel. Verse 13, and when those 12 sheep, tribes of Israel, had grown, they gave up one of them. Now, this is Joseph. We know the story. One of the 12 sons of Jacob sold into slavery by his brothers who were jealous of him. Yes, Enoch knew this before it ever happened. The greatest prophecies ever in this book. So you sold to whom? To the asses, the donkeys, Midianites, who are what? Ishmaelites. This is Bible fact, set straight by Enoch long before. And those asses again gave up that sheep, Joseph, to the wolves, Egyptians, exactly as recorded in Genesis as well. But why wolves? You'll see. Anybody ever wonder where Enoch might get the idea that a wolf represented Egypt? No, he's not calling the average Egyptian a dog, okay? Enoch is not a racist either. Here you go right there. One of their gods, Anubis, is a jackal, or actually a wolf, really in origin. Enoch nails it again. It is this false god, Anubis, who is being identified here, and that is why Egyptians are wolves in this sense. Joseph is then taken to Egypt, of course, by the wolves to their home. And that sheep, Joseph, grew up among the wolves, the Egyptians. Verse 14, and Yahuwah brought the 11 sheep, tribes of Israel, to live with it and to pasture with it among the wolves. Jacob, Israel, and his other sons joined Joseph to live in Egypt. We all know the story in Genesis. Enoch knew this thousands of years before it happened. And they multiplied and became many flocks of sheep, the 12 tribes of Israel now in Egypt. At first they prospered and even had a fertile land there in Goshen, but the wolves will turn on them. And the wolves, Egyptians, began to fear them. Ah! And they oppressed them until they destroyed their little ones. And they cast their young into a river of much water. But those sheep began to cry aloud on account of their little ones who were being killed, and to complain unto their Yahuwah, exactly as Torah expresses. Verse 16, and a sheep, Moses, which had been saved from the wolves, Egyptians, he had been spared on the river and not drowned, fled and escaped to the wild asses. There they are again. Where did he go? He went to Midian, according to Scripture, among the Midianites, who are Ishmaelites. Enoch has now identified twice and affirmed that Midianites are Ishmael. Some do not know that. Where he even had an encounter with the burning bush on Mount Sinai there, because Mount Sinai has never been on what they call the Sinai Peninsula. The mother of Emperor Constantine, the not-so-great, was not an expert in the Bible, nor especially biblical geography. Yeah, that's where that claim comes from, not the Bible. And I saw the sheep, how they lamented and cried, and besought their Yahuwah with all their might, till that Yahuwah of the sheep descended at the voice of the sheep from a lofty abode, and came to them and pastured them. Mount Sinai, jumping forward and now back. Why? Well, Enoch has seen Moses and the burning bush, which is on Mount Sinai, and the later encounter in his dream in the same area. Very normal. Verse 17, and he called that sheep Moses, which had escaped the wolves, the Egyptians, and spake with it through the burning bush, according to Torah, concerning the wolves, Egyptians, that it should admonish them, ask them, not to touch the sheep, Israel. Verse 18, and the sheep, Israel, went to the wolves, Pharaoh and the Egyptians, according to the word of Yahuwah. And another sheep met it and went with it. That's Aaron, Moses' brother. And the two went and entered together into the assembly of those wolves, Pharaoh's court, and spake with them and admonished them not to touch the sheep from henceforth. Let my people go. And Pharaoh said, no. And thereupon I saw the wolves, Egyptians, and how they oppress the sheep exceedingly with all their power. And the sheep, Israel, cried aloud. Verse 20, and Yahuwah came to the sheep, Israel enslaved in Egypt. And now the action really heats up, and this gets good. And they began to smite those wolves, Yahuwah did it, of course, with the plagues of Egypt. And the wolves began to make lamentation. But the sheep became quiet, and forthwith ceased to cry out. And I saw the sheep till they departed from amongst the wolves. This is the Exodus. Pharaoh finally let them go. But The eyes of the wolves, Pharaoh, were blinded. And those wolves departed in pursuit of the sheep, Israel, with all their power. But it won't be enough. Verse 22, and Yahuwah of the sheep went with them, in a pillar of fire, in fact, as their leader, and all his sheep followed him. All Israel, including the Gentiles, strangers among them, were there too. Read Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. They all say that many times over. And his face was dazzling and glorious and terrible to behold. But the wolves, Egyptians, began to pursue those sheep, Israel, till they reached a sea of water, the Red Sea. You know this part. And the sea was parted, and the water stood on this side and on that before their face. Wow. Exactly as it happened. And there Yahuwah led them and placed himself between them and the wolves, which you just saw in the previous. And as those wolves did not yet see the sheep, they proceeded into the midst of the sea. And the wolves, Egyptians, followed the sheep, Israelites, and those wolves ran after them into that sea. And when they saw Yahuwah of the sheep, woe! They stopped in their tracks. Indeed, they saw Yahuwah. He was there. Now that is awesome. Enoch saw that. They turned to flee before his face. Wow. But that sea gathered itself together and became as it had been created, and the water swelled and rose till it covered those wolves. And I saw till all the wolves who pursued those sheep perished and were drowned, the horse and rider thrown into the sea indeed. But the sheep escaped from that water, and went forth into a wilderness, where there was no water and no grass, desert exactly as Torah expresses. And they began to open their eyes and to see. The haze wore off from all the miracles, and now they realize they're thirsty and they're hungry. And I saw Yahuwah of the sheep pasturing them and giving them water. Moses struck the rock, remember, and water flowed enough to quench the thirst of over 1 million people. That's a lot of water and a great miracle in the middle of the desert. And grass, well, that would be manna. Yes, sheep eat grass. And Enoch is still in character here. Understand that. It's manna. And that sheep going and leading them, Moses. And that sheep ascended to the summit of that lofty rock, Mount Sinai. And Yahuwah of the sheep sent it to them, had sent Moses to the people. He proposed covenant, and the people accepted. That's what happened on what day? Shavuot, the biblical feast day, also known as Pentecost in Greek. This happened on that exact day. Verse 30. And after that I saw Yahuwah of the sheep, who stood before them, and his presence was great and terrible and majestic. That's the Mount Sinai encounter, folks. And all those sheep saw him and were afraid before his face. And they all feared and trembled because of him. And they cried to that sheep, Moses, with them, which was amongst them. We are not able to stand before our Yahuwah or to behold him. That's Torah before it was even written. Wow. And that sheep which led them, Moses, again ascended to the summit of that rock. This would be for 40 days and 40 nights. But the sheep, Israelites, began to be blinded and to wander from the way which he had showed them. But that sheep What not? He was not. He was gone. He was on the mountain still, thereof. Moses was still on Sinai, and what did they do? They fashioned a golden calf to worship. Verse 33, and Yahuwah of the sheep was wrathful exceedingly against them, and that sheep, Moses, discovered it, and went down from the summit of the rock, and came to the sheep, and found the greatest part of them blinded and fallen away. And when they saw it, they feared and trembled at its presence, and desired to return to their folds. And that sheep took other sheep with it, the Levites with swords, in fact. That's what Scripture says. And came to those sheep which had fallen away, and began to slay them. They killed them. Indeed, the priests in those days were not playing around. They were not wimpy. They killed those who rebelled, trying to reinstitute the occult, basically from Egypt, into the worship of Yahuwah. See, Yahuwah always rejects that infusion, which is what they have always done, by the way, and they continue to try to this day, even whole churches and denominations. The origin of the synagogue of Satan from Revelation 2:9 and 3:9 in practice right here. Infusing worship, that cannot be. And the sheep feared its presence, and thus that sheep brought back those sheep that had fallen away, and they returned to their folds. They repented. And I saw in this vision till that sheep became a man, and built a house for Yahuwah of the sheep. Now this is the tabernacle that Moses built to house the very holy of holies in the Ark of the Covenant, the presence of Yahuwah. Yes, the physical presence of Yahuwah. And placed all the sheep in that house. The tabernacle specifications appear actually to form a dome, a circular top, in fact, but nevertheless. Verse 37, and I saw till this sheep, which had met that sheep, this is Aaron met Moses, remember, which led them, fell asleep. Aaron died, the brother of Moses. And I saw till all the great sheep perished, all the adults, as they must in order for Israel to enter the promised land. That was the order of Yahuwah. All adults passed away. And the little ones arose in their place, and they came to a pasture and approached a stream of water, the Jordan River, to cross into the promised land. It was now time. Then that sheep, their leader, Moses, which had become a man, withdrew from them and fell asleep. He died. Yes, Enoch too knew where we go when we die. We sleep. Watch that series, Where Do We Go When We Die? And all the sheep sought it and cried over it with a great crying. They mourned for Moses. And I saw till they left off crying for that sheep, and they crossed that stream of water, the Jordan River, which also parted, according to Scripture. And there arose the two sheep as leaders, Joshua and Caleb, in the place of those which had led them and fallen asleep. Verse 40, and I saw till the sheep came to a goodly place, the promised land, then Canaan, which would be renamed Israel after Jacob's name, and a pleasant and glorious land. And I saw till those sheep were satisfied, and that house stood amongst them, the tabernacle, in the pleasant land. what would become Israel. Remained in their midst all throughout that time until the temple was built later. Now we have made it to the promised land. All of this dream vision was prophecy in Enoch's time, written before the flood. And he even told us he received this before he was even married, before Methuselah was even born, almost 1,000 years before the flood. Wow. Yet Enoch nails it. Of course, this is the reason dunderheads, calling themselves scholars, yet acting like scoffers, try to date this book far, far later. After all of these events, of course, because, well, they're Pharisee scoffers who don't even believe in Bible prophecy. Thus, they say, this cannot be because, well, it's just too accurate. Duh. The greatest prophet with the first writing among men, and they want to ignore it? Well, we will not. This has been a most precious series and restoration of this lost knowledge, which brings so much to light. Wait till you see how Enoch even further identifies some of these animals that surrounded Abraham, because this is going to be very revealing, as well as Messiah's coming in the flesh and his death. How about that? Yes, Enoch foretold it all, and his second coming, all the way to the end. We have, it looks like, 3 more of these animations in the works coming. We'll get them out as fast as we can, but we're not going to rush. And these will end our 52-week series, but we are not done with 1st Enoch, nor are we done with Jubilees, nor even 2nd Esdras. We will be putting more things together very soon. Still, even in these next 3 videos, though, the revelation will be monumental. We have almost 450 videos on this channel, one for every day of the year, many just as profound, with some 50 or so in Tagalog for Filipinos, and now 6 in Spanish to start. We also have been setting up subtitles for 20+ languages for most of our videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell for notifications of new uploads. Join our email list as YouTube fails to notify often, and we will notify you ourselves at thegodculture.com. Just fill in the pop-up there. We now have alternative platforms for videos on Rumble, Odyssey, and Utreon, and our new podcast is also available for all of our videos as well. All links in the description box. Friend us on Facebook at The God Culture, _space, original. If you prefer an alternative, we now have Parler and Gab. Links below. We have 6 books published internationally, being read in over 100 countries, with a new release now available. The first book of Enoch, the oldest book in history, and we prove it right there in the introduction. Read it. We also have now launched Ophir Philippines Coffee Table Book in the US, Canada, UK, and many overseas markets on Amazon. And it's available in hardcover or softcover there. Additionally, we launched the Book of Jubilees, the Torah calendar, with color maps and interior, as so many had requested overseas. We already had that with color maps in the Philippines, but that too is available in hardcover or softcover, both in color or also in black and white, if you wish. All books, including Solomon's Treasure, are now free in eBook. Yes, folks, our content is free. And don't forget, the Book of Enoch, 1st Enoch, is also available in hardcover color, softcover color, and black and white color on Amazon. But in the Philippines, it's just black and white. That's all we can offer at this time. Just go to ophirinstitute.com for all the links for your area for all of our books. More coming soon. Thank you for watching. Now, always remember, prove all things for yourself. Yah bless to everyone.